If you're South Asian, you face a unique problem when it comes to your health and fitness. Should you focus on building muscle first or losing fat? So why do you have this problem? Because you probably look like this.
This is a story of hormones, proteins, and epigenetic flickers, the physiological conditions that make Indians different when it came to metabolic disease. This phenomenon is referred to often as the paradox of the thin-fat Indian.
Gurneet here from South Asian Strong. If you're South Asian, you probably have the typical South Asian body. Your arms, legs, and face are skinny, but around the middle, there's a little bit extra. I covered the reasons why South Asians almost always have a skinny fat physique in my last video, but basically it's because we adapted to survive the frequent famines that happened in South Asia for thousands of years, which caused us to develop adaptations to store a bit of extra fat for when times were tough as a reserve energy source, and also to have a little bit less muscle because it's metabolically expensive. In this video, we're going to talk about how to fix this. To start with, let's understand the problem. The problem with being skinny fat is that you actually have two problems. The skinny, meaning you're under-muscled, and the fat, meaning you have excess body fat, especially on the abdomen. Now, the issue with having both of these problems at once, and something that causes a lot of confusion and frustration for South Asians on their fitness journey, is that you don't know which one to focus on at first. And this is because you've been told that you only have two tools at your disposal. In the fitness community, these are muscle building phases, commonly known as bulks, and fat loss phases, commonly known as cuts. So why is doing either of these alone a problem? Because they're conflicting goals. Let's say you're naturally skinny and not South Asian or skinny fat. The mainstream advice, which will work well for you, is to bulk up and focus on building muscle. During this time, you might gain a bit of fat, which is normal and expected during a bulk, but this isn't a big deal since you have a typical ectomorph or hard gainer physique where you're naturally skinny everywhere and have a tough time building muscle, but when you do gain body fat, it happens in a balanced way, proportionately all over your body. Or instead, let's say you're naturally heavy set. It would be clear that you need to focus on cutting fat first, and on a typical cut, your main goal is to lose as much fat as possible while maintaining any muscle mass you do have, and maybe adding a little. For natural endomorphs with a lot of body fat to lose, this is a great option because not only will you lose body fat, with all that extra energy stored on your body, you'll most likely end up building a significant amount of muscle along the way. Now, the problem if you're skinny fat is that neither of these approaches will result in a complete transformation, which for others would be ideal. Why? Because we have both the hard gaining characteristics of ectomorphs, meaning we're naturally skinny and don't have much muscle to begin with, and also the fat storing tendencies of endomorphs, meaning we normally have a little bit of extra body fat and gain fat a little bit more easily, especially on the midsection. These characteristics, which are usually at opposite ends of the spectrum in most populations, often occur simultaneously in us due to our unique genetic advantages to survive famine. So, if we decide to bulk, we may increase our muscle mass, but we'll end up gaining even more fat around our waist. And if we decide to cut and are not at a very high body fat percentage, we will lose fat, but we won't build much muscle along the way, and we'll just end up looking skinny. Alright, so if we can't cut or bulk, what should we do? I like to break the transformation process for South Asians down into 3 phases designed to overcome the 3 common issues South Asians face when it comes to their body transformation goals. The first of which is the need to both build muscle and lose fat simultaneously rather than focusing on one alone. We will accomplish this in phase 1 of the South Asian Strong Transformation Program through a process called body recomposition. Body recomposition is an alternative to traditional bulking and cutting routines where rather than focusing on either fat loss or muscle building, you focus on both simultaneously with the goal of improving your overall body composition, which is the ratio of fat to lean mass you have in your body, aka your body fat percentage. Now, I'll get into the exact details of the phase 1 plan later in the video, but for now, know that there are 3 ways of achieving this. The first is by reducing your fat mass while maintaining or slightly increasing your lean body mass, resulting in overall weight loss. Basically, a fat loss phase. The second is by reducing your fat mass and increasing lean body mass at the same time, resulting in little or no overall weight change, what most people think of as recomposition. And the third is by focusing on increasing lean body mass while minimizing fat gain and increasing your body weight overall, also known as a lean bulk. Which approach you take will depend on a few different factors that will combine to determine the overall amount of calories or food you will be consuming during your recomposition. Now, the goal of phase 1 is to ultimately get you down to around 12% body fat if you're male and around 22% if you're female. This is the point at which most of your excess body fat will be gone, but for most of us, there will still be a little bit left remaining around the abdomen. Now at this point you'll look and feel great, but the mistake most people will make once they get to this level of body fat is that they think their transformation is complete. But for most of you at this point, you'll now want to build more muscle, and this can cause an issue because if you switch to a pure muscle gaining phase, aka a bulk, you're likely to gain a little bit of fat along the way. For most other populations, doing a bulk to about 15% body fat wouldn't be a big deal, but for us it is. Due to our skinny fat prone genetics, South Asians tend to store extra fat on our abdomen, and this is where you'll start to gain it all back if you bulk at this stage, which I'm pretty sure you won't be happy with.
Does Dota look alright?
You look like melted ice cream.
This leads us to the second issue South Asians face on their transformation journey, which is that they tend to stop their fat loss phase too early. This leads to gaining back fat mass in the worst areas, and as a result, we're unhappy with our physiques every time we try to build muscle. To overcome this, you're going to need to get a little bit leaner, which is why phase 2 of the South Asian Strong program is stubborn fat loss. The goal in this phase is to get down to around 9 to 10% body fat if you're male, and around 18 to 20% if you're female. Now, I don't recommend staying at these levels longer than a few months, and your body will actually make it hard for you to get here in the first place. Which is why we'll use a few handy strategies you may have heard of to make the process easier. These strategies, however, will be used in moderation and at a minimum effective dose to make the process sustainable and easy to implement. Now, at this point, you won't have any stubborn fat left, and aesthetically, you'll be in the best shape of your life. The only caveat being that unless you've done a proper muscle gaining phase in the past, most of you will feel a little bit too skinny and will want to build more muscle. Which leads us to the third issue South Asians face while trying to transform, which is bulking up too soon after the fat loss process and doing this too fast. This is why phase 3, the muscle building phase, has two parts. The first part is a short reset and maintenance period which will teach your body to stay lean long term by letting your metabolism establish a baseline around your new body composition. More importantly, you'll get used to maintaining this level of leanness with your dietary habits so that you don't binge and reverse all your hard work. This should last anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks and will also allow you to find out your new level of food intake needed to maintain your weight that you can then build off of for your next phase. The good news is, since you're no longer trying to lose fat, you'll be able to eat more at the level of your maintenance calories. Then, once you've gotten used to staying lean, it's time to build as much muscle as possible while gaining minimal fat. This is known as a lean bulk. The goal of part 2 is to slowly build muscle until you get up to the level of body fat you were at the end of phase 1, which is around 12% if you're a man and 22% if you're a woman. To accomplish this, your rate of weight gain should be between 1 to 1.5% of your body weight per month, which is about 1 to 2 pounds, depending on your experience level with resistance training. Now, it's important to note that the faster you gain weight, the more likely it is that you'll gain more of that weight as fat, which is why we limit our rate of weight gain to that amount. Overall, this phase should take between 3 to 6 months, at which point your transformation will be complete. Congratulations, you've lost fat, built muscle, and permanently changed the way your body functions and looks. Not only that, but you've also learned everything you need to know to repeat this process and keep improving. Now, I only covered each of these phases briefly, and we'll go into much more detail on phases 2 and 3 in later videos. But to start, let's go over the exact details of your body recomposition plan. As mentioned earlier, the goal during this phase is to improve your body composition, which is the ratio of fat to muscle in your body. This will happen through either of two ways: reducing your fat mass while maintaining your muscle mass, which is basically a fat loss phase, or reducing your fat mass and increasing muscle mass at the same time, which is what most people think of as a recomposition. In most cases, we'll aim for the second strategy, but ultimately which approach you take will change based on 3 factors: your age, your body composition, and your training experience. The part of your program that will change based on these factors is the amount of calories or food you will be eating for your recomposition. We'll start by figuring out your training experience. If you've been resistance training consistently for at least 6 months and meet 3 out of 5 of these strength standards, we will consider you trained. However, if you have less than 6 months of training experience or do not meet these strength standards, we will consider you untrained. The reason your training experience is important is because untrained individuals will experience something called newbie or beginner gains in the first 6 months to 1 year after they start resistance training, where they will gain both muscle and lose fat no matter what they really do. Meaning, even if their diet and training isn't optimal, they'll still get good results. In fact, if your body fat is high enough, even a traditional cut or fat loss phase at a calorie deficit will result in significant muscle gain. That said, we want to take advantage of this period and squeeze as much as we can out of it with the right training and nutrition. Following the right program that uses the most powerful and well-researched training and dietary strategies will allow you to make the most of this period, and this is crucial since you'll never really get this opportunity again. Here's an example transformation of someone who had never strength trained before and lost 50 pounds while gaining muscle in only 6 months of the South Asian Strong program. Once you're past the beginner stage and meet both the required strength standards and at least 6 months of training experience, you can now consider yourself a trained lifter and should modify accordingly. It is still very possible to both build muscle and lose fat, but you just have to take a more careful approach. Now this approach, whether you're trained or untrained, will be further modified based on your body composition, aka what percentage of your body is fat. To determine your body fat percentage, take a look at these charts and then take a look in the mirror and see which category most closely matches with what you see. If you're surprised by the number, know that the electric scales many of you have at home are typically inaccurate, and so you shouldn't rely on these to figure out your body fat percentage. Now that we've figured out your body composition and training experience, we can combine these with your age to figure out the best dietary strategy for you to achieve body recomposition. Let's start with those over the age of 18. If you're between 15 to 20% body fat and you're considered untrained, you will be eating at your maintenance calories, and if you're under 15% body fat, you will eat at a slight surplus. In both cases, this will continue until you reach the criteria for being considered trained. Your maintenance calories will be your TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure, which you can use any calculator online to figure out, or you can estimate by multiplying your body weight by 15, assuming you're lightly active. Now technically at your maintenance calories, you're not supposed to be losing or gaining weight, but since you're new to training, you'll start to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time without having to change your overall food intake, and this will occur even in a small calorie surplus. The only thing you will likely need to do as a South Asian to get the best results is optimize your macronutrient intake by eating more of your diet as protein and less as carbohydrates. To figure out the exact macronutrient split for you, check out the free quiz at southasianstrong.com. Now, if you're over 20% body fat, you will be eating at a 10 to 20% calorie deficit, meaning 10 to 20% below your maintenance calories, which should result in a weight loss of about a half pound to 1 pound a week. Since you have so much extra energy stored on your body, much of this will go towards building muscle, and you'll be able to achieve body recomposition even while losing weight overall. Now let's talk about what to do if you're considered trained by our standards. No matter what your body composition is, you'll be eating at a calorie deficit. This means overall you will be losing weight because fat loss will be pretty much impossible without weight loss. The rate of weight loss will be higher the more body fat you have to lose and lower the leaner you are, and as such your calorie deficit will be larger or smaller. In general, body recomposition gets harder the leaner you are, so you have to take a less aggressive approach if you want to build muscle while losing fat. It's important to note that the best way to ensure this is to make sure you're using the right intensity and getting stronger every workout during your body recomposition phase. Now let's talk about what to do if you're under 18 years old. Feel free to skip this part if this doesn't apply to you. If you're under 18, it means you're still growing, and no matter what your goals are, you need to take this into account and be more careful so that you don't put your development at risk. If you're under 20% body fat and untrained, you will be in a calorie surplus to support both your muscular development and overall growth. And since you're untrained, you will lose body fat at the same time. If you're above 20%, you will eat at maintenance and also achieve recomposition using the extra energy stored on your body. Now, if you're trained, your targets can change based on your goals. If you're lean, I would recommend eating at maintenance in order to maximize muscular development and overall growth until you're 18 years old, and technically you should also achieve recomposition as you get older. If you're in the 15 to 20% range and not comfortable with your level of body fat and want to lose a little bit of fat, a slight calorie deficit might be in order. But if you're comfortable, eat at maintenance and you should still recomposition slightly as you get older and will gain more muscle this way. Lastly, if your body fat is higher than 20%, you are most likely okay to eat in a calorie deficit without compromising your growth and development due to all that extra energy stored on your body. Overall, no matter which category you are in, make sure to increase the protein content of your diet and reduce carbs if you're eating a typical South Asian diet. Now, those are all the guidelines you need to achieve your body recomposition no matter where you start and how you progress. An important thing to remember is that your recomposition strategy will change throughout your transformation as your body composition, training experience, and even your age change. Let's say, for example, you're a 20-year-old man at 20% body fat with no training experience. You would start at maintenance calories until you reach 3 out of the 5 strength standards and 6 months of training experience, at which point you may have 15% body fat and are considered trained. So you would then switch to a 15 to 20% calorie deficit until you reach the overall goal for this phase, which is around 12% body fat for men. At which point you would move into a stubborn fat loss or muscle gaining phase to get even leaner or build more muscle. So now you have an overall strategy for your complete transformation from skinny and fat to lean and muscular. And all you need to do is fill in the details, such as the workout program you're gonna use to build muscle and the foods you'll eat to lose fat. I'll cover all these details in future videos, so please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below. If you're like Rakesh though and want to get started on your transformation right away, go to transform.southasianstrong.com and sign up for our Phase 1 transformation program, where we give you a step-by-step plan to fully transform your physique while only working out 3 times a week and still eating the foods you love. The program is delivered via a mobile app and short e-course that cover all the details of your training and nutrition plan, with video demos for each exercise, daily meal plans, sample recipes, and more. That's it for this video. If you want daily examples of how to eat, exercise, and live to best support your health and fitness goals as a South Asian, you can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at South Asian Strong. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.